Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast.
Here's a sneak peek into what we're going to cover in this week's episode of the Echo Tips podcast. We are gathered together on this solemn occasion today to remember fondly some Amazon Echoes and their set accessories that we hold, or held, I should say, so dear and are no longer with us. So please, accompany us as we go and visit the Amazon graveyard of yesteryear. Well, hello, and welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. It's good to have you new listeners and you returning listeners as well. And we'll give you a little rundown about what our show is all about now in its 7th season. But at a high level, we're going to talk about, well, I guess you kind of got a little prelude of that before, what our core subject is going to be. And it's really based on a Verge article I recently read entitled, basically, I believe, The Echo Graveyard. So this is kind of a symbolism or a concept that's been born through time with different tech giants who are always throwing new ideas against the wall to see what sticks. And the consequence of that is often there's many devices and services that go to their graveyard. Google's notorious for this. There's a website all about Google properties and services that have gone to rest, and they're 6 feet under now. And so this was kind of Verge's take on that related to the Amazon Echo line of devices, services, programs, little accessories and gizmos we had, all connected with the Amazon Echo. Now I believe in its, I think I read 10th year or so of having the Amazon Echo. So we're going to take a look at that and get some feedback. For me, with my experience, The Verge had its own take on it, thinking some of these things were good ideas, others not such good ideas. Please leave them 6 feet under. And I'm going to give you kind of my feedback on it all. Some of this feels like it was ahead of its time. Some of it just, what were you thinking? Right? All right, so before I delve into that, I'd like to welcome our new listeners. Welcome you new listeners to the podcast. This is the Echo Tips podcast, where I am the host, David Ward. I'm an let's get the right phrasing there. I am the assistive technology instructor for the New Vision program at Goodwill, based here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Southwest Virginia. And you'll find our program, our nuggetized episodes on a weekly basis. That's 52 episodes a year, and it's been a long time since I don't even think we stopped during the pandemic. We just kept cranking out those episodes. I tried to make sure there was a new episode every week for no other reason for our sanity during the pandemic, that we can continue learning new things and things like that. But our nuggetized episodes are somewhere, when I say nugget, how big is this nugget? It's somewhere in the 15 to 25 minute range. Every once in a while, we'll have an omnibus episode, which is clearly labeled, where we take a whole bunch of stuff and we smush it all together and we make a kind of a giant, soup to the whole shebang about a particular topic, like reminders or alarms, different things like that. We've covered a lot about AI innovations in different spaces and where we are with the Amazon Echo in that regard as well. And we probably have some additional rumors and information about that in a future episode, because there's definitely some interesting things going on. And we were supposed to hear about, at least that was the rumor, about a lot of this stuff happening at the end of October, or by the end of October. And now we're in November, so makes us wonder. So we'll be discussing that probably in a future episode. But we're going to continue with our core topic, which is the Echo Graveyard. And we're going to look at, in particular, 8 different items that are in that graveyard. But before we get into that in any sort of detail, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, as always, and then we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a non-profit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the show where we delve into the topic of the Amazon Echo Graveyard, that mythical place where echoes go to die and never come back. Although some of these things have come back, but that's far and few between. Most of these have gone the way of the dodo, and they are no longer with us. Now, I am going to be using the A-Lady name periodically, and I'm also going to be using the wake word Z-I-G-G-Y, because that's what I have the Echo here configured in the studio for at the moment, and so just bear that in mind if you have an echo in hearing distance of my voice. You know, sometimes it can even be in the other room. You may want to shut its ears off. All right, so we're going to press on here. So let's delve right in with our first of 8 different items in the Echo Graveyard. We're going to open up that gate and walk over to our first tombstone, and that is the Echo Look. That's right, the Echo Look from around 2017 went up to about, I think it was supported or maybe discontinued in 2020. I would imagine that's when all support was discontinued for that, probably, because I only think they ever made one device. I don't think they ever revised it in those years. But from 2017, it was around $199, and a really bizarre device, our first tombstone item, the Echo Look, in that it wasn't any similar form factor that we're used to, either a ball or a hockey puck or a Pringle can. It actually was more like a mountable device, kind of, if I remember right, kind of like a clip of some sort with an attachment that you could put up in maybe on your dresser, on your wall, or on your mirror in your bedroom, or somewhere where you're going to be trying on clothes, and this would get a full-length kind of body photo of you. And then with supposed intelligence and AI, remember this is 2017, people, so that didn't really exist, per se, not in any kind of consequential way. It would do these matches and say, oh, these would look good on you, these suits or these dresses or these whatever clothes for the fall or for the spring or for the winter. And it would make suggestions to you. Now, it didn't have a screen on it, so you couldn't really look at them. So I think that in itself was kind of a problem. But there was privacy concerns. The price was outrageous. I think it was $199 when it debuted. And so this device, as you can imagine, went and died and went 6 feet under. Now, The Verge says it should have stayed dead, but I think really this is probably a device ahead of its time, right? Because I feel like if they brought something like this back, let's call it the Echo Look 2.0, they integrated it in one of our Amazon Echo shows that have the little motor that can pivot the screen and the camera around left and right. I think it'd be advantageous to be able to pivot up and down too, so it gives a good body shot of you with the screen. I think one, you'd have a multi-utility device, right? It would be one, be an Echo Show, and do all the things an Echo Show could do. But two, where I think this could flourish is now AI is a thing. And it is amazing some of the things it's able to do, especially visually. Right? This didn't happen in 2017. Even in 2000, what did I say? This was discontinued 2020. Even back then, that was the beginning of the pandemic, basically here in the States. And by the springtime, things were getting shut down in that summer. So AI, the things that we saw ChatGPT with OpenAI do, that's only recently we're talking about here. So this device died long before that. But think about this. If a modern device using AI on the back end could take a picture of you, and then you say, I want to see suits, black suits with a pinstripe that I look good in, and it pulls up a Rolodex of pictures, and I can tap, I kind of like this 3-button one with a vest, and I tap on it on screen, then it could take a picture of me and a picture of the suit and do an AI thing where it matches that over me or attaches my head and my arms to, it superimposes that on me. I think that could be really cool. Kind of like what I think IKEA did with, you could take a picture with an app in your room that's empty and you could superimpose where the couch would go or a chair would go or a chest of drawers would go or a book cabinet would go and what it would look like in your own room. And so this would be the same kind of concept but with clothing. So I think this is something that has been done by certain small niches out there for suits, tuxes, I believe certain dress shirts. I think Shark Tank had a guy on there that did stuff like this, and you get custom fitted clothing. I'm not really talking about anything quite that sophisticated, but just the ability to take, this suit, or if you're a lady, this dress or whatever, and just put it on you and give you that visual, that color doesn't go well with my hair or whatever, right? That would be amazing. So I think really this device was a device ahead of its time. And think about if you mix in AI smarts with the conversing of the A-lady, you could say, no, I want the same kind of suit but with brass buttons. Or show me, instead of a charcoal suit with pinstripe, show me a navy blue, and then just jump, show me ones with the price range that's, $50 cheaper. If you got anything $50 cheaper. And they would just pop that up. That would be really kind of cool. Okay, I've stayed too long on this gravestone. Let's move on to our second one. Now, this is one many of you may have never heard of. It's called the Echo Tap, our second gravestone. Yes, the Echo Tap. It was called the Echo Tap because you were originally intended to tap the button on the top of the unit to trigger it to give it a voice command. You couldn't just say, "Hey, lady," or "Zigggy," "Hey," or whatever wake word just to get it to respond. Now, later in a firmware update, they did fix that. And that became a feature. Now, the cool thing about this is it came with a little hockey puck it sat on. It was really nicely crafted that would charge up its battery. So it had a battery. It basically was a Bluetooth speaker in those early days that also had the A-Lady built into it. So unlike a JBL or a Bose Bluetooth speaker that you could spend hundreds of dollars on and just, but you always had to pull your phone out of your pocket to skip an album or change tracks or whatever, right? You could just yell at it, "Hey, lady, skip that song," and it would do it. It was pretty awesome. And, this device went to die. I think it was $139 at release. This too, I believe, was around, 2017. A lot of stuff came out in 2017. And I think it really had maybe some potential, but it just really went nowhere. It was hardly heard of. I don't know if they didn't advertise it in the right circles with Bluetooth speakers or what. Maybe if they were to bring back a waterproof edition, maybe that would help sell it. I don't know, but it went to die, and it is our second tombstone. Let's now look at our third, and that is the Echo Buttons. Our third tombstone is the Echo Buttons. Also released in 2017, you could get a 2-pack for about $19.99 US. Now, this is ironically a dearly loved item in the Echo community. I go on the home automation websites and the Dot to Dot podcast with Robin Christofferson. The buttons are very, very popular, but they're not popular for the original reason they were advertised. They were originally advertised as a gaming thing. So you would be sitting with your family with a set of these buttons in front of you, and you'd be playing some sort of verbal auditory game. And, you'd slap the button like Jeopardy, "I have the answer," or whatever, whatever kind of function where it had you slap the button, right? And it was a Bluetooth, I believe wireless, ran on batteries or had a rechargeable battery. I can't remember which. And you would slap the button, and that would be the way you would interact with the game. Well, it never, as you can imagine, took off in that genre. But where it did get popular was routines and home automation, because it branched out into the feature set where you could assign a button to just tap this, and then all the lights come on in your house, starts playing nice music in the morning, and sets the thermostat to what you want it to be. It was a choreless way, without having to say verbal command, just to slap a button and something would happen. So this clearly went to die and has never returned. I don't believe they ever made a second version of it. But I feel like some sort of iteration of this could potentially work, maybe a tinier version of the buttons or building it into light switches or something like that, or the faceplates that you put on light switches so that you could just have that feature there. I walk into my studio or I walk into my movie room or my entertainment room and I push a button and it does a series of things. That could be really cool. Or many people working at home, you push that button and it triggers a work routine that tells everybody you're working today or something. So I don't know. I feel like there's a place for this or some sort of macro-like device, maybe with multiple buttons on it, kind of like a Stream Deck, that interfaces with your home automation. I definitely feel like there is a need out there for something like this. And of course, the Echo shows and stuff have kind of added that virtualized button feature to the front where you can program it to have buttons on the touchscreen. Okay, so that is our third tombstone. We're now going to move on to our fourth. Let's wander over here and see what is buried 6 feet under. It is the Echo Connect, our fourth tombstone, also released in 2017. Only, I think, got discontinued as far as support went just a year or two ago, maybe 2023, 2022. And I mean, they never reiterated it or anything like that, so I imagine you probably couldn't find it much past 2017. But really, was an interesting device. Now, the Echo has always been able to do virtual phone calling and stuff, and they've kind of limited its functionality in modern times to like 10 regular phone numbers. But the Echo Connect was a cool little device that you would plug into an analog, yes, honest to God, copper telephone landline in your house. Okay, and that would give your Echo the capability to call out on that line and, perhaps most importantly, receive phone calls. So I work with a lot of seniors. I feel like something like this could be really, really useful, but not for the way Amazon implemented it. I think with just a few tweaks, this could be brought back and be pretty amazing, because there are still people out there that have analog, still have landlines. Even if they come in on their internet, voice over IP, where there's a little jack in the back of their cable modem that you plug the old analog phone line into, I feel like there's still could be a potential place for this. And maybe even you could branch that out into other features on Android phones or iPhones. I don't know if that is capable of doing that, but stop and listen to what I'm suggesting. The Pixel cell phone, Google's phone a few years ago, offered a feature and still does, and I've encountered this every once in a while when I call somebody that has it, a virtual assistant, AI again, remember, so this was 2017, they didn't have this capability then, an AI assistant that will answer calls that are from numbers that are not in your address book. So in other words, those spam calls, those sales calls, those calls that drive you nuts, Pixel, you can have an AI assistant answer and say, hey, I see you're trying to reach David Ward. What do you want? Why are you calling him, right? And it would leave, hopefully, if a human being's on the other end, they would say, hey, I'm calling from his doctor's office. And in turn, he would come back to me and either on screen or verbally, give me a yes or no, send him a voicemail or yes answer. And I would answer. So very, very cool. This would be fabulous if they brought back an Echo Connect. The ability for it to triage incoming spam calls and just do that exact same thing. Are you trying to reach Mr. Ward? What is this about? Or even if it was stupid simple, I've seen devices that do this, press number 1 to reach David Ward, and in an automated call Ward dialer is not going to be able to press number 1, right? And I've seen devices like that go for nearly $200, if not more, and they're just dumb. They just play a recording like an old answering machine, and then listen for the tone of the one, and then they either ring the rest of the house phones after that, or they send them to voicemail. Right? But I think an Echo Connect could be really kind of cool in this context because you could have an AI assistant that answers the phone for you and triages those spam calls. I think you could also push it towards a business model, maybe potentially, where you have a call tree system or an AI system that helps triage things at work. Would you like to reach human resources? Would you like to reach sales? That could be kind of interesting if Amazon could spin that up, but it's just a crazy idea. I think it has potential. Maybe if it ever came back. All right, so let's move on in our tombstones. We're now going to look at our fifth tombstone, and that is the Echo Input, also / the Echo Link. So the Echo Input was the original model, and it was designed to be basically a Bluetooth receiver. I'm really dramatically making it underwhelming. I guess it really wasn't that whelming. It was underwhelming. Anyway, so it would receive the audio feed from your Echo, say Spotify or whatever music you were listening to, pipe it to this little box that had a jack that came out, and you could plug that jack into your high-fidelity stereo system. So you had already several $1,000s in a stereo system. That was a cool way to kind of, MacGyver it so that your Echo could... Now, the problem Amazon had with this device and why it got buried, I think, is at the same time, they still had the Echo Dots that had an auxiliary jack out on them, an output jack on them, or headphone jack, or a line out, whatever it's called, and it would pipe out. So you could just as easily buy an Echo Dot, probably cheaper than the Echo Input, and send that output to your stereo. Now, the fidelity of that was questionable. The Echo Input probably had a better audio DAC. It's called a DAC that converts the digital to analog. And eventually they revised this and made the Echo Link, which was even more expensive, which I think made it a harder proposition, where it did much more high fidelity audio and stuff. I think it probably still used Bluetooth, and this might have predated some of the 5.0 Bluetooth standards, which really started to offer higher fidelity over Bluetooth. And even in modern systems now, there is high quality audio that's done over Wi-Fi, I believe, like AirPlay from Apple. So I don't know. I feel like, it may have been a little ahead of its time, and the codecs and the pricing clearly was wrong. But this is in our Echo graveyard, the Echo Input and Echo Link. All right, let's move on to our next item. Our next item is the Echo Flex. So the Echo Flex was kind of a dearly beloved device. The idea was that you could have an Echo in every room. If you're too far from, you're out in the garage, you're in the basement, somewhere where you typically don't have a lot of space, or you want to set up an Echo, or just go through the trouble of having this, find a place to put this on. You could have this device plug right into a wall outlet. And it was a wall outlet duplicator. So it still had outlets that came out on the front. If you had a 2-outlet wall outlet on the front, you'd have, I think you'd have the 2 outlets. Yeah, you'd have the 2 outlets, I'm pretty sure. You can check me on that. But it would allow you to have a pass-through, so you could still plug your lamp in or whatever else you needed to plug in there. But it had an itty-bitty little speaker, and you could talk to it even though you were in that room and maybe not in the traditional living room or bedroom or wherever you had another Echo, and still get it to do certain functionality. It also had these little adapters you could plug into it that would turn it into like a clock or a night light and other things like that. So that was a unique feature. I believe this came out around 2019. It was very cheap, very economical. I don't remember if it controlled the actual outlet itself, which I feel like is an oxymoron. I feel like it should have controlled the outlet, but I don't think it did, which was kind of a downer, because then it would have been a 2-in-1. It would have not only been a smart outlet, it would also been an A-Lady, which I think that could have really upsold it. Probably people got disappointed buying it thinking it would do that. I thought it would do that, and I'm pretty sure I looked it up and it couldn't do that. So very cost effective, but it didn't make the grade and got buried. So that is our 7th tombstone. We're going to move on to our final and 8th tombstone in our gallery, and it doesn't even have the word Echo in it. And that is the Amazon Wand. I had to think there for a second. Amazon Wand. So the wand was a very unusual device. I have one of these sitting in my fridge over here in the kitchen. And it looks like a little kind of stickish thingy with a circle on the end. You could hang it on a nail or something on the wall or whatever, but it's got a magnet on it too, so you can slap it on your fridge. And it has a barcode laser scanner at one end. Now you push the button on it and it lights up the barcode scanner and you can scan items into it. But ironically enough, it also had A-Lady functionality into it. Now I don't think it could play music or anything, but you could push the same button and it would go ding, and you could give it a verbal command. You could say, "What's on my calendar this week?" or something, and it would actually pull it up. It was bizarre. It ran on like 2 AAA batteries, I believe. So it was a bizarre little device. Not too sure why it had the Hey Lady built in there. I guess if you scanned a can of chunky tomato soup or something, you could hit the button and say, I want 3 cans of this instead of just one that it would put in your cart or whatever, on your Amazon cart. I don't know. It was a little bizarre. It was probably one of the coolest things ever. But anyhow, I forgot one other device we were going to talk about today. I think I might have skipped a number here, and that was another tombstone in a similar genre. I just thought of it because of how tiny it was, and that was the Echo. I realized that I skipped over one of these, by the way, guys. There are 8. And there are 8 tombstones. And the last one I forgot was called the Echo Loop Smart Ring. So this was where you could wear a little battery-operated ring on your finger that you had a little tiny speaker into it, and you could talk to the A-Lady, and you could maybe hear, if you really strained yourself, hear its responses. So this would be classified as a wearable device. But as you can imagine, it never really took off. It seems like smart glasses like the Meta, Ray-Bans, and other things are more where this space is going. Some sort of glasses or something like that, or a watch, smart watches, much more where the ecosystem is going versus the smart ring. So this went and died as well. So even though I covered those somewhat all out of order, it is nonetheless 8 tombstones in the Amazon Echo graveyard that we're looking at. If you have any thoughts or suggestions for a future episode, I'd love to hear your feedback at info@goodwillvalleys.com, and or you can send us a post on Facebook or Twitter, now known as X, at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys. And in either case, either in the subject line or the body of the post, mention you're trying to reach Dave of the Echo Tips podcast or the New Vision program, and that way your message will be directed to me. Well, until next time, it's time to turn the ears back on your Echo, start practicing some of the many, many things you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we thank you for listening.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.